Now let's reflect on this from yet another perspective. This is the concluding part of my talk this evening. What does empire, as we've described it, globalization, war, mean to religion? How is it related to religion? Empire is supported to some extent by certain elements within religion. We know, for instance, that the American empire at this particular moment in history is supported by some elements within the Christian evangelical community who support war, who support the type of predatory globalization that we talked about, who want the empire to grow and expand. The great supporters of the empire, Franklin Graham, Pat Robertson, and individuals of that ilk. They are great supporters of empire. But religion has also produced some of the greatest critiques of empire, the opponents of predatory globalization. They've also come from the womb of religion. In the protest against the war in Iraq, for instance, the churches in Europe, both the Protestant and Catholic churches, played a very big role. If there was any one religious individual who played a major role in trying to dissuade the world to go to war, it was the Pope. We have to acknowledge this because the Pope, as we now know, was instrumental in persuading 3 Catholic countries, the Security Council, not to vote for war. So the churches, leading personalities linked to religion, have also been opponents of war and empire, the way in which it is conceived. And this is true not just of Christianity. It's also true of other religions. If you have people within the Judaic faith who support empire, there are also a lot of people within the Judaic faith who are opposed to empire and dominance. This is also true of the Muslim community. There are Muslim leaders who are supporters of empire because the empire ensures their thrones, like the Muslim leaders, the emirs and the sultans of places like Kuwait and Qatar and Bahrain and so on and so forth. They have been supporters of the empire. But the Muslim masses and a number of other Muslim governments were opponents of war and empire. So you have the dichotomy in almost every religious community. There may have been Buddhist leaders who had supported the war, but there were Buddhist movements like the International Network of Engaged Buddhists that was opposed to the war. And there were Hindu groups that were vocal opponents of the war and of empire. But there were some elements within Hindu society that supported the war. Now, this dichotomy within religion is going to be an important factor in the future in shaping international relations and world politics. If I may say this about Islam, since I belong to that religion, there are trends and tendencies within the Muslim world which are both negative and positive as far as this future is concerned. You have fringe groups, and I underline this, fringe groups opposed to empire, who feel that the only way of fighting this, the only way of confronting empire is through terror, through violence. Al-Qaeda and other groups that may be affiliated to it would be part of that fringe. The perpetrators of September 11th may be part of this. They may be angry, they may be disillusioned, but they have chosen to express their anger in a violent, vicious manner by resorting to terror. But I want to emphasize this, that they do not represent the majority in the Muslim community. This is not just a pious platitude. This is a reality that one has to understand, because sometimes when you read the media, you get the impression that these are powerful groups that dominate Muslim thinking. They are not. You take just one country as an example, where you have fringe groups of this sort, Indonesia. Indonesia for centuries, and this is the world's most populous Muslim nation, has had an approach and an understanding of Islam that is the epitome of tolerance. A country where 90% of the population is Muslim recognizes all the minority religions as official religions. And as you know, one of the greatest heritages of Buddhist civilization, the Borobudur, is in Indonesia. This is something that is forgotten in the midst of all the din and noise about terrorist groups. Because when I was reading Time magazine on the plane, I looked at this article in Indonesia and I thought to myself, someone who doesn't know Indonesia would conclude that the place is infested with the Jamaah Islamiyah types, that you have Amrozis and Imam Samudras and individuals of that sort all over the Republic. This is not true at all. But the point remains that there is a fringe element, which is a matter of concern. But you have that fringe element in other religions too. Within Hindutva, you have a fringe element that believes in violence. Even within a religion like Buddhism, if you look at the Sri Lankan conflict, we have had Buddhist monks advocating violence directed against the Tamil minority. And of course, within Christianity, those who support dominance and hegemony, they have no compunctions about going to war. So you have this phenomenon in all religions, this tendency towards violence and terror. There's something else within religious communities that should concern us. Again, groups and individuals are very concerned about hegemony, empire, dominance, especially its cultural dimension. They react to it. But how do they react to it? They react to it by emphasizing an atavistic vision of religion, wanting to go back to the past, a revivalist notion of religion, a religion that is wrapped in a literal interpretation of texts. You find that among Muslims, you find that amongst Christians, Jews, Hindus, people of all religious communities. And as far as Islam is concerned, I think thinking Muslims must deal with this. They must come out in the open and say this openly, that this is not right, this is not Islam.